Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, am I all right? Good. Thank you. It is indeed a pleasure to welcome everyone. I call to order the regular GCC Board Meeting, December the 14th, 2021. Roll call. Mr. Mark Anderson,
Here.
Mr. Harry Block,
Here.
Mr. Bruce Mandrek,
Present.
Mr. Jack Turner,
Present.
and Lily Campbell. All 5 board members are present. Thank you so much. Before we go into our regular agenda, we do need to approve SB 361 board resolution. And as you remember, this is a board resolution, SB 361, which gives us permission to meet by Zoom to make sure we're following the Brown Act and doing all of the things that we are supposed to do in notifying parents and everyone on staff. So at this point, I will entertain a motion for approval of Board Resolution 361, SB 361. Yes, Mr. Turner.
I move approval.
Move approval, May.
Second.
Bruce?
I second.
It has been moved in second. Any discussion? Questions? Comments? Hearing none. Roll call. Mark Anderson,
Yes.
Harry Block,
Yes.
Bruce Mandrek,
Yes.
Jack Turner,
Yes.
Lily Campbell, yes. The SB 361 board resolution has again been approved. And now I want to, before we go into the regular meeting, thank all of you, cabinet members, board members, everyone who's present for being with us tonight. We have a great meeting planned and we're ready to go. And we certainly appreciate all of those who are watching us and with us virtually. So thank all of the staff members who are here, parents who might be looking at us, and all of our cabinet members. Thank you for being with us tonight. And with that, we will continue on into our regular board meeting. Do we have public comments?
Madam President, there are no public comments tonight.
Thank you very much. And so with that, we are now moving into the superintendent's update. And I know she has a lot to tell us. Superintendent.
Yes, well, welcome. Want to second what Madam President said and welcome our staff and our public and anyone who is with us online. We want to remind everyone that in case you have forgotten, we are still in the midst of COVID-19 and all its implications, and Sacramento County, Yolo County are both experiencing an increase in COVID-19 rates. We're preparing for the winter surge, according to our local public health agencies, between travel, holidays, etc. So it is our work to continue to educate our staff, our families, our community regarding the impacts, and also through providing testing clinics and information about vaccinations. You will probably have heard by now that the governor has introduced another public mask mandate for all of California, and that will start December 15th and go through January 15th. We believe that is his measure of trying to provide for this surge that is expected. It doesn't really change how schools are taking care of safety, as we were already doing all those things anyway. But we will continue to support any measures that provide safety for our staff, families, and community. We want you to be aware that while the HR department strives continuously, we still have significant unfilled positions at our school sites, and it's not for lack of trying. And all of our various principals, admin, teachers, support staff deserve all of your recognition for continuing to go above and beyond in difficult circumstances. So I just want to again affirm them here in my update. I continue to be involved with AXA in a variety of ways, including the weekly meetings with the AXA Superintendent's Council and other places similar to that, where we're getting as much information as we can. And I do not think that we are in a position any different than anywhere else in our region in terms of staffing and challenges. Everyone is facing the same issues that we are, but I appreciate the support of the fellow superintendents in discussing their practices during this time. So other things that we've been doing in relation to AXA, I want to continue to affirm staff. We have a variety of staff involved with AXA in a variety of roles supporting the region. And recently we were at the CSDC conference when some other charter leaders from up north came up to tell us, hey, we're following your example and we've taken over AXA up here where we are. So I think that we are leading by example, modeling the way, and having a significant voice in AXA, and I know you'll be proud of that work. Today, I spent some significant time with leaders across the state in the AXA Leadership Development Committee, which is working on part of the strategic plan for AXA. So again, just continuing to represent on behalf of our organization. At the CSDC conference, Jason and Dr. McCormick and myself all had different roles. Dr. McCormick was a volunteer extraordinaire. She was checking people in. She was being a room monitor, and then she also was a presenter as well as a learner at the event. Jason and I did a presentation on charter renewal, its politics and its strategy. And then Jason also represented by co-presenting around the area of WASC. As most of you know, he's a WASC commissioner, and we're very proud of him for that work that he is doing to represent there. Crucial conversations, I've given up saying which number it is because everybody tells me I'm wrong no matter what number. It's in the 20s, okay? It's somewhere in the mid-20s. We're finishing the current cohort of Crucial Conversation this week, and I want to thank our participants who have been doing a great job representing, and we will be giving them certificates and cookies and recognizing it. So also I want to recognize John Campbell, Jerry Kosh. They've both been being guinea pigs as we roll out a prospective principal support and supervision model for next year. And they have been doing some good work modeling, going through that and modeling what it will look like for the next year. So I want to affirm them for being willing to do that with me. The virtual academy is up to 150 students now, so definitely want to affirm that. Ms. Tara Jones is heading that up and continuing to support its success, so we want to affirm her for that work. Additionally, I want to remind you that the central office and our schools will be closed from December 20th until January 2nd. Prior to us leaving, we will be trying to celebrate the holidays up until Friday afternoon. And if you were able to be here in the office, we'll have to take lots of pictures to show you, but there's a huge decorating contest going on at the moment, and it is highly competitive and very overwhelming if you're a Grinch. And so we are excited to see that all the departments are in a high level of competition to find out by Friday who won the decorating contest. The most competitive, I believe, is the superintendent's office. And I'm saying office because it's not me, and it shall go unnamed who that is, Melissa, but there you go. So the other thing I want to mention is we have reached out to the board, as you guys all know, to suggest a board holiday lunchtime in order to have a smaller, safer celebration with the board. And 3 board members were able to make the time that we were suggesting. I understand that there is some discussion about maybe changing that date. I would suggest possibly New Year's, after the new year might be a good time if we're trying to ensure that we get a date when all 5 board members could be present. So we will have Ms. Melissa send out a communication and confirm what the board would like to do, but I'm just putting it out there. Madam President, if the board is interested in a full board lunch, which we cannot have on the date that we had tried for, then we will need to wait until the first week of January or beyond. And that is the end of my updates.
Thank you, Dr. Peterson. Board members, any comments, any questions, discussions regarding the superintendent's report update? Anything? I appreciate your mentioning again the luncheon, because we would like for all of the board members to be present. And if they can't, I think it would be feasible to wait until we all can get together for that. And it would take some of the pressure off of you guys too, getting ready for the closing of school and doing all of the things that you got to do within the next week. So thanks for considering the possibility. Board members, anyone else have any thoughts on that? No, no thoughts. Okay, well, you have my thoughts. Thank you again. Harry, do you have your hand up? No? Okay. And would you kind of move? Thank you. All right. Nothing else on the superintendent's update? Then we will move, and thank you again for all of the work that you're doing. And I appreciate the update on access, as I'm not involved that much now. So thank you. All right. Again, we move into item 5, study session, the COVID-19 and school update. And I believe that's Mr. Sample and Dr. McCormick. I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. Good evening, Board President, Dr. Peterson, members of the board. Thank you so much. We want to take this brief moment, Dr. McCormick and myself, just to kind of give you an update of where we are in terms of COVID-19, as well as our schools, vaccination and testing. Next slide. So the first thing is just to kind of take us through a few of the current updates that's happening. As Dr. Peterson shared during her superintendent's update, we are seeing an increase in both Sacramento and Yolo counties. Sacramento County has reported that some of the areas which we have schools in, Del Paso Heights, North Sacramento, North Highlands, continue to be some of the highest affected areas for COVID cases. What we're really experiencing, and this is some of the information that we receive in our weekly calls from public health, is what's called the post-Thanksgiving surge. And it was very reminiscent of what happened last year, where post-holiday travel, post-holiday gatherings, we saw this. You've probably heard in the news lately, the new variant that is out there. I feel like each time we give you the report, the last time we were telling you about Delta, another time we were telling you, but now we have a new variant that we continue to track. And you may have read in the Sacramento Bee recently that there were traces of this variant found in our local sewer system. So obviously public health is tracking and monitoring that very closely. As Dr. Peterson shared, we did read in the news and have been kind of up on the universal mask mandate within the state, which will go from the 15th through the 15th of January. I think it's important to note here that that mandate will have very little effect on what we do already at each of our schools in terms of the required masking. So I think the way that some have explained this is the universal masking is very similar to what's already happening in schools. So our families won't feel a huge impact to their already activities and things that they're doing for indoor masking. Some of the things that we continue to do is we are tracking and carefully monitoring all of the legislative and mandates constantly that are coming out. One of the things that I want to make sure that we share with you that currently there is no language that's been created to change the July 2022 ability to request a personal belief exemption from vaccination for students. And so we are working very hard. We have joined with other educational leaders throughout the state, even some of our work with AXA, to really let our legislators know what the impact of a mandate like this would be on the public education system. And so even this past week had myself and some others, we had a one-on-one meeting with Assembly Member Kevin McCarty. We have another meeting scheduled later on this week on Thursday with State Senator Richard Pan, again, just to give that this will make a huge impact. So some of those things will keep you updated as they happen, but we wanted to let you know that we are working very hard on this. Next slide. Around vaccination, so we continue to do a couple of things. One, we're partnering with our local county supervisor, in particular, Rich Desmond, who serves the North Highlands area and even parts of North County and the North Sacramento area. Supervisor Desmond has been very responsive to our desire and our need to continue to give vaccination clinics to our families and to our community. We've partnered with both Twin Rivers and San Juan on their various vaccination clinics so that we're offering that to our families, our staff, as well as county public health. One of the things that we have done, we've had our second series of community forums where we have actually partnered with a Slavic doctor from UC Davis Medical Center who is coming in and talking about the benefits of vaccination to our families so that they're getting that directly from a doctor that they trust, that they have a relationship with. And so we're going to continue that work as we go into the beginning of the year. And then I'm going to turn this over to Dr. McCormick.
So I wanted to just take a moment and give you an update on our percentage of staff that are fully vaccinated. We are seeing this number increase, which we anticipate we will continue to see. Currently still running 4 testing site locations, but overall there's actually 9 different times that we provide the opportunity for staff to take advantage of free testing to meet the weekly requirement. And I can't say enough about the team that has come together to help support this testing locations between monitoring and tracking those that are coming in and then the results being posted to the state database on the other side, but also running tests down to the laboratory to make sure that we meet the deadline to get them delivered to the laboratory on time. So I am thankful every day for that team that covers for each other when someone's out sick and just really make sure that we have those locations up and running and available to our staff that need the service within the GCC. So as we have continued to learn and grow, and our nursing team works with each of our school sites around quarantining, one of the items we have been able to implement is using the public health decision forest. We moved from a tree to a forest several months ago with the different process of our nursing team has now been able to be trained and have the capacity to do rapid testing on our school sites when we learn that we have a student that is positive for COVID-19 so that we can keep more students on campus based on this rapid testing. So our nursing team has really, again, they've stepped up to get all the training they needed and are responding as fast as possible to each of the school sites as needed to be able to keep as many students as possible on campus. So parents do have to agree to being part of the modified quarantine. So if they elect to not consent to testing, the student still has to be sent home for and is placed on independent study. But it is nice to be able to keep lots of students on campus. So we had about 10 classrooms last week that were agreed to modified quarantine. And I would say of the students in the class, we're having about 75% that families are agreeing to have them participate in testing. So that's some of the work that we have done as we've continued to improve our testing capacity and learn all the different elements of how to support students and our schools and our teachers through this process.
And so one of the things that we definitely want to close out before we take questions from you is really Dr. Peterson and the entire cabinet team. We really want to take this opportunity to affirm our principals for their hard work. I will tell you, they came into the business to educate. They did not know that they were going to have to become public health officers. They were going to have to become testing coordinators. Our nursing staff, our human resource department, it really has been a total team effort to really get us to this place in the school year. And so we would be remiss if we did not take this opportunity to affirm them, to thank them really for their hard work and dedication, because it's really taken all of us as a team. With that, we'll take your questions.
Thank you, Jason. Board members, any questions at this point for Jason or Dr. McCormick or Mr. Sample? I do have one. You mentioned several times modified quarantine.
Yes.
Tell me what that means.
If a family agrees to have their students tested through the rapid testing system, it allows the student to stay on campus and receive instruction directly from their teachers, as opposed to having be placed in full quarantine and go back to our independent study, or what looks like distance learning. So that was part of the decision for us, is that was an addition, was this modified quarantine option.
So they are still in the classroom,
Correct.
isolated somewhat, or just among, I guess I just can't see it.
It looks as if the classrooms have looked. They're fully masked and maintaining their distance. And then the nursing team comes in and tests the group of students 2 times during the 10-day quarantine period.
So the modification, Madam President, is in the amount of testing. If they agree to the amount of testing, they can stay. If they don't agree to the amount of testing, they don't get a modified quarantine, they're just quarantined.
Okay.
So that's the only difference.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Do I see any more hands from anyone? Thank you for your continued support of updating us and keeping us abreast of where we are with the COVID and now the Omicron and all of the other variants out there. So thank you. And I echo what you're saying in terms of staff. As a principal, I'm glad I'm not there, because I never would have envisioned that this would be what we're doing now, testing and all of the other stuff that goes along with it. So I applaud all of the principals and staff for what they're doing to try to keep students in school. Thank you. All right. Seeing no hands, nothing else. We are now moving on to consent agenda items. And the adoption of GCC Board Meeting, March the minutes of 11/16/2021, personnel consent agenda, purchases over 30,000, revised job description for English language art special, and there's just one word change there. Disposal and surplus of items, COA middle school, and the resolutions 2021-22 CalSTRS, which we had talked about last time. So with that, I will entertain a motion for the consent agenda items. Yes, and Mark, you're muted.
So moved.
So move the item. May I have a second? Yes, Mr. Turner? You're muted.
Second.
Thank you. And now, any other discussion, questions? Any?
I have a question.
Okay, Mr. Block?
Under the consent agenda on the personnel certificated, do HLA have a fully certificated PE teacher now? Since we proved the other one, what's going with that?
They have hired a PE teacher for the middle school. So what you're seeing is a PE teacher that they're hiring, appropriately credentialed, and is going to be able to do the PE for middle school. They continue to use the previous contract that you approved for elementary.
Okay.
Okay. Seeing and hearing no other questions or hands, roll call. Mark Anderson,
Yes.
Harry Block,
Yes.
Bruce Mandrick,
Yes.
Jack Turner,
Yes.
and Lily Campbell. Yes. So the consent agenda items have been passed unanimously. And now we move into item 8, business. GCC first interim budget and financial report. And Ms. O'Mara, are you ready? Would you introduce her?
I'm just happy to introduce
Yes.
Miss O'Mara. Our CBO, Miss Rena, is going to be giving her first ever first interim as our CBO. And so just want to say You know, it's been a trial by fire for our new CBO and her new team, and a lot to learn, but I really appreciate all of the energy, time, and effort that Ms. O'Meara and her team have put into what you're going to hear about today.
And I also want to thank her for calling all of the board members to see if there were questions or comments. So we really appreciate that individually. Thank you. Okay.
All righty. So I'll get you guys started with the 21-22 first interim report. So this, what I'll go over is the introduction. I'll be focusing on LCFF revenues, revenues in general, expenditures, the fund balance, some risks, and the conclusion. Okay. So the introduction is just to kind of brief you on what the first interim is. On the first bullet, we see what the components of the first interim are. There's the original adopted budget, board approved budget, which is the same as the adopted budget currently, because that's the last budget you approved. Your revised budget, which is your first interim budget. Your expenditures, which are through 10/31, so October 31st. This presentation will focus on comparing the adopted budget and the first interim or your budget revisions that are being presented to you tonight. Additional details can be found also in the budget book, but I'll go over the main and biggest components of basically in summary of what's in the book. Okay, so I wanted to give you guys a little bit of information on the LCFF and the LCFF calculator. I did send out these slides via email as the board meeting started, so you can reference those back later. I don't know how well people can view on Zoom, but I'll do my best to give you some input. So on the first column, and I'll kind of use my cursor to kind of show you where things are. This is our ADA currently for the different grade levels, right? And then here is the base allocation. So everybody gets this amount, no matter what type of school you have. This is the amount you get per grade level. There is a grade span adjustment, which is here for TK to 3, and then 9 through 12. For districts and charters that qualify, that have unduplicated percentages, everybody gets the supplemental component. So you get that based on your unduplicated or UPP number up here. So this is the percentage of students that we have that are needy, low income, free and reduced, homeless youth, etc. So that's where this number comes from. So there's that dollar amount, and then our concentration. So those are for charters that are above the 55%. So we're well above 55% for this particular example. This is just one of our schools, one of our many schools. So we have to build these calculators 9 times, right? Because we have 9 different LEAs or charters that we do these for. And then here it gives you the total of what we're getting per grade level, and then the total LCFF. So this is how the LCFF calculator is built. From this component, these are the different components that you have here. So it's base, supplemental concentration, you have your EPA and property taxes. So all those numbers combined make up this 5.4 million, okay? So this is just some of the assumptions. We had a mega COLA of 5.07, 20% supplemental grant for the supplemental component, and then 65% for the concentration component, okay? And this is another tab on the LCFF calculator that I kind of wanted you guys to kind of see how things are driven. This right here shows what amount needs to be set aside for supplemental and concentration of the 5.4. So right here's, oops, let me go back one. So there at the bottom is your 5.4 here. Keep going, here's your 5.4 total funding. Out of that, 1.3, almost 1.4 needs to be spent on specific actions, So the LCAP, whenever you guys approve the LCAP, that's what amount of money needs to be set aside for those particular students. So it's 34% of the unrestricted budget that has to go to some type of restricted. It's not restricted, it's still classified as unrestricted, but it has to have a purpose to bridge and support students that are part of the unduplicated population. Correct? So here is some enrollment figures, and then here's your rolling supplemental concentration or UPP number. Okay. So your main source of revenue, in summary, is your ADA. So the higher your number is here, the more money obviously you're going to get at the end, right? And also the other big factor is your unduplicated pupil count, and I'll illustrate how that's kind of saved us and helped us in this particular year. So here are your enrollment and average daily attendance, or your ADA. So our enrollment, you can see we've dropped significantly from adopted budget to first interim to 193. The impact on ADA is 156. So this is just a comparison of enrollment versus average daily attendance. And these numbers obviously are dollars that we're losing, right? I give an example of that 156 and kind of what that would look like if we would have maintained a flat enrollment, or we would have continued. We're losing 1.8 million estimate without any other factors, meaning if nothing would have changed at adopted, we would have had a significant hit, right? So it kind of gives you an average base. Obviously, the base varies by grade level. So I just took an average of each of the components. So this is about how much money we get per student, right? And so that's a significant amount of money, right? And the increases that you see from adopted to first interim, a lot of it is to help the STIRs and PERS. The COLAs are also to help offset some of those expenses that are coming down that we'll talk about in the future and a little bit ahead, okay? Actual loss from adopted to first interim was actually only 107. So why the variance, right? So things changed from adopted to first interim. Some of the things that changed were the 65% increase to concentration funding. So that was a good thing for us. And then the factors that helped also was the unduplicated population. So I'll kind of talk about that. So I actually had Valerie pull an example for us. So here is COAs, and obviously we had a significant drop. I believe it was 98 drop of students, right? As you can see, oops, let me go back. I keep hitting the wrong button. So you see here on the base grant and grade span adjustment that we're losing funds here. So you see these big chunks of negatives, that would have been our cuts, right? But what saved us is these two components here, concentration. This is the additional funding that we received based on that 50 to 65% increase, right? So we're seeing a jump here in the concentration, which is good because it's offsetting some of this impact. You also have it here, but you can't really see it because our unduplicated number has gone up, and you can see that right here. Here's our UPP number. It went from this number to these numbers, right? So that's partly why you're not seeing such a significant impact to this particular site. You still have 306 of unrestricted expenditures that have to come down, but it's not as severe as if we wouldn't have gotten those dollars. Okay, so just wanted to illustrate why these two don't look the same, right? Our loss of 107 looks a lot nicer than a loss of 1.8. Okay. The unduplicated percentages or UPP numbers. Here's some of the sites that lost enrollment, but you can see for the most part, we have an increased UPP on most sites. So I just wanted to point that out, that helps some sites offset some of those losses. Okay. I'm going to go into the general fund resources in general. So you have your LCFF sources, which we went into detail about. The variance from adopted to first interim was 107, which is good. Regardless of how many students we've dropped, we have a good LCFF source, pretty flat. Our federal resources went significantly up from adopted, and this has to do with the one-time dollars being reclassified into unearned revenue. So now we have to record it as revenue every year as we're spending it. So you'll see that component there. So I talk a little bit about that here. There was also new federal program. There was a reclassification of ELOP allocation that was reclassified. It was basically split. It was one program that was a state program, and then they turned around and said, okay, now we're going to make it 5 different categories, and 4 of those categories are federal. So it kind of switched from state to federal money. We still got the allocation, it just split a little bit different. And like I mentioned, the COVID or one-time revenue carryover that now has to be recorded as revenue. For state revenue, we have new programs. So you see a jump of 1.3. We have the ELOP program. It's Expanded Learning Opportunity Program. That's really mirrored as the after-school program. So it's supposed to be for, and we've talked about this in other updates, it's supposed to increase the instructional time for before, after school, and intersession. So that's what this program is. Educator effectiveness, we got our allocations for that, and special ed learning recovery support. This is a SELPA program. Also all one time, all state programs. Other local revenue, we decrease this allocation based on E-rates from prior year actual. So we'll true those things up as we see the unaudited actuals. We use comparisons to kind of see how we landed in prior year to make adjustments to our current year. For general fund expenditures, we have these 5 different categories. It's actually 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. 7 categories of expenditures. So you have your certificated staff, your classified staff, benefits, books, and supplies, your services and others, capital outlay, and other outgo. And you can see the variances in the changes between adopted and first interim. Okay, so this stayed pretty flat. There's a little bit of increase. These are all due to one-time money being spent down. Okay, this has to do with health and welfare being brought down and trued up, and also we had the unemployment factor change from 1% to 0.5. So that's reflected there. You have your books and supplies increase due to more purchases with one-time funds. Same with services. This capital outlay has to do with the Sava Sac City expansion remodel that's happening. We've decreased that budget in seeing how much things will cost and budgeting as we go. So we will true that up for second interim once we have more information. And here are some of those explanations. Some of the things I didn't talk about were the certificated 1.5 one-time bonus. We checked to make sure that that wasn't included in adopted. That was approved after adoption. So you have the 1.5 bonuses for both certificated and classified. That was off salary schedule. So everybody's getting an amount. These are some of the positions that we're seeing being funded out of the certificated salary. So we have school nurses, obviously. Christine and Jason spoke about testing and now having to do all these additional requirements due to COVID. social workers, support specialists, reading specialists, curriculum coaches, all things to support the learning loss component of these one-time dollars. Likewise, classified, we have a lot of custodial, paraeducators to do the cleaning, disinfecting, and then paraeducators to support our instruction and our teachers in the classroom. The books and supplies is PPE, pandemic related supplies, instructional technology, Chromebooks, laptops, and just other curriculum that is needed. Services, you have consultants. We talked about just a bit ago on the consent agenda. We have a consultant that's doing PE due to lack of teachers, instructional licensing. So a lot of curriculum now is a licensed things you do on the web. And so we're seeing more of that component in this section. Communications, we have purchased a lot of hotspots. Travel is going up as people are providing more in-person conferences. And then repairs, rentals, and leases. This is kind of all one chunk, and mainly repairs of things that, vandalism at this time is somewhat big due to the season. Capital outlay, again, I spoke about this a little bit. Decrease of the Salva Sac City expansion project. We will bring this back and revised for second interim. And there is a significant drop to Salva Sac City's budget due to declining enrollment. So we will review and make sure we're making sure we stay solvent and in place. So this is the fund balance. This is a summary, and I was really concerned when I saw these numbers. And so I'm going to go into more detail about what these numbers mean. So this is a combined restricted, this is unrestricted here, but it's restricted and unrestricted. And the beginning fund balance is, you see this huge drop of the beginning balance, right? So what happened, right? And so I'll go over that in a little bit. Increase and decrease to net assets. This is just your revenue in current year minus your expenditures in current year. And I'll be able to explain this huge negative here once we get there. And then ending fund balance is where we're going to land, right? What is it going to look like? So for this exercise, I really had to split the unrestricted and restricted side so you can see what's going on and what's happening in the fund balance and the activity in year to year. So this beautiful chart here shows you by school what's happening. This is your unrestricted component. And then down here, I've split unrestricted and restricted here. And this is your first interim, and this is your adopted budget. So you could see that in the unrestricted side of the house here, we're looking just at the beginning balance. So these numbers tie back to the first slide, the slide right before this. You can see that your unrestricted beginning balance here, the 36 and the 35, are pretty close. It's $1.6 million difference in our favor, right? So we started with 1.6 million more than we did when we adopted the budget. So the adopted budget has your estimated actuals, right? The estimated actuals are just an estimate of where we think we're going to land. So we were off by 1.6 million. So we really started with 36.8 at first interim. First interim now picks up the unaudited actual numbers, which are our final numbers of when we close the books. Okay, so that's our variance there of 1.6. And then you see this huge variance in the restricted side. So the restricted side shows you all the federal and one-time funding that we received that at adopted was fund balance, which means you accrue or you account for all your revenue in that year, which means that whatever wasn't spent gets sent to the fund balance. In this situation, the state, when we closed the books, right around between when we adopted the budget and when we closed our books, so between June and September, they said, we want to change all these ESSER fundings, all these one-time fundings to unearned, which means the change in classification caused us to only record what we had spent. And so you see this huge drop. So the difference between this 21 and the 2 is the 19, which is money that's going to be coming in throughout the years, or that's going to get recorded throughout the years as we spend it, right? So that's what you see here, same thing. So if you had the fund balance, then we're assuming that the 10,000 here is going to get expended, right? The net is your revenue minus your expenditures. And so we're saying we're going to spend 10 million more than the current revenue from this 21,000, right? And then you'll have 11 left. Well, this is saying the same thing, right? But it's much smaller because now the state and the federal government has said, we want to reclassify this. And so it changes the way you're looking at the accounting, okay? So that's why you see these variances, but you can see that the unrestricted was not a huge impact, right? And your fund balances look a lot better on the unrestricted side than the restricted side. So there was a change in the accounting right after adopted and before unaudited actuals that caused this shift, right? So I just wanted to illustrate it so you guys could really make sense of it. Okay, and this is just some of the same things I just talked about, the variances, what they mean, some of the definitions of what each of those components mean, if you have any questions. I'm not going to read through them. I kind of did already. Unless you have questions, you can always go back and answer any of your questions. Okay. Some of the risks in this budget, obviously, is the loss of enrollment in ADA. That's an ongoing concern, especially with the pandemic and potential mandates that the state might bring on. That is a great concern, and we're closely monitoring to make sure that we adjust the best we can. Over the next few years, you have STRS and PERS increases. So those continue to increase. That's something to also note. The cliff is something everybody has to be aware of. This is faced with any district charter that's in California because we have a significant amount of one-time money, making sure that these temporary positions and one-time purchases are not budgeted for the future years, right? So really, these next 3 years are going to be very crucial to make sure that we're really looking at what we have and really prioritizing what can we afford for future year and what is the highest impact to students. So that is on our to-do. I want to give thanks to the budget and accounting team, Valerie, Yvonne, Norma, and Grayson. And I just put a quote out there since we launch with a quote. It says, none of us is as smart as all of us. So it really took a team to build this budget, from our analysts to our supervisor to our director and myself to put all this together. It was our analyst's first time going through this cycle. So they've never gone through a budget cycle themselves. This is the very first one. Valerie had learned SACs. And so we've all have a little bit of a learning curve. And obviously for me, the narratives, presentations, and all that good stuff. But we're really happy to be part of GCC and to bring this to you. So I will entertain any questions at this point.
So can I just interrupt for just a moment,
Yes.
Madam President? So first,
Yes.
I do want to affirm Omira and her team for all their hard work, but there was one comment that I know will bring a concern from some of our school site staff, and that is, and I think it's just a misunderstanding, but the Sav-Sac City is not in declining enrollment. Their enrollment today is within one student of what we budgeted for, but also our independent study schools, they continue to enroll at a high level. They have a lower percentage of ADA to enrollment, but they will continue to enroll at high levels for a long time. And so there's some trends that probably Dr. McCormick and I need to talk to Omira and her team about to go back and look. But I will say independent study schools, especially independent study high schools, have a little different way how they end up where we budgeted them for. It just takes them longer to get there. So I just don't want my SAVA staff out there blowing up my phone, because yes, I know your enrollment is on track for what you committed to me. So, all right.
I
Okay.
just want to add, it's the change between what we projected our enrollment numbers to be at adopted to what they are currently for first interim. So, which is reflected on slide 7.
Okay, I see hand, Jack.
Yes, I really appreciate it, and I appreciated the narrative. I think it was a very clear and frank, I guess I would say, description of where we stand, particularly when we're looking at the area of declining enrollment. A question, and then just a comment. The question is, why did the state change the category for in the budgets and led to the appearance of this huge decline?
For most federal programs, and I think it was just a disconnect between whoever was managing all the COVID one-time resources, and typically all are titled that our federal programs are unearned revenue. So I think it was just a catch up of, okay, we don't want to categorize that. And the reason behind that is that they don't want to give you, so an allocation when you have a fund balance is an allocation. They give it to you, you spend it whenever you spend it. Kind of like lottery, for example, we get that allocation and we get to spend it whenever, however long it takes us, where these funds have expiration dates and they're not wanting to give it to you unless you spent the dollars or have committed the dollars.
I understand now. Very good. Just a comment on your narrative and your presentation tonight. If we are beginning in an era with certain of our charters with the declining enrollment, I think it is going to be a major discussion at our March retreat. I hope we have time. I don't know if we need to do budget adjustments this year, but revenue costs are going to continue to go up, and even faster than we can probably predict. And we're driven by ADA and enrollment. So it's a pretty clear picture. And I think we need to really, for one of the first times in a long time, really need to look at our budget and to come up with the strategies that we're going to use. But again, I appreciate it. I had some questions yesterday, they were answered. And I really also I think the LCAP presentation also was one in which I really, for one of the first times, could see. And you have to do that 9 times for all of the charters, as opposed to other districts that do it just once. Very impressive, and I thank you very much.
You're welcome. And I just want to add that we are aware of some of the projected adopted enrollment numbers to first interim and actively advertising to ensure that we're bringing in students. So we're doing a video for advertisement, also some flyers and other advertisement that Jason can speak of if you guys have additional questions.
Okay, do I see any more hands? Harry?
Yeah, I looked at traveling and it says increased by $550,000. What is travel? Is that transportation and traveling or just travel?
That's just travel. So because there has been a lockdown from prior years, we weren't sure if people were going to be doing in-person travel. So that's pretty consistent to what we've spent in previous years. Also, again, there's a lot of one-time money that needs to be spent on professional development. For example, the educator effectiveness is mainly PD grant. And so that's partly why you're seeing an increase there.
Okay, so what does our transportation look like?
What's that?
I want to make sure that
Transportation.
is the transportation line, is what you're asking, Mr. Block, is that the transportation line, is that transportation for professional development by itself? Does it include busing?
Yeah.
So yeah, he wants to know what all is included in the transportation line.
I don't know what are you referencing?
Well, busing, from number one, is this part of the busing that we're doing? This all just,
We
We
do
just
do
travel.
busing, and I'm not sure, Christine, can you speak on what sites we do busing for?
I just don't know. I need to make sure that we understand. We may be talking about three different things.
Mhm.
So, Mr. Block, what line item are you looking at where? So we make sure we're talking about the same thing.
it was saying traveling that I looked at it and then it says travel at $550,000 increase. And that was in, what you call it.
Yeah,
wasn't
so
a-
the travel component, it has nothing to do with transportation of students. It has to do with professional development, people attending conferences and training. So that's, again, we did have a grant that came in for educator effectiveness that mainly focuses on that component.
Okay.
It doesn't mean, by the way, that we're going to spend it that way unless, unless, COVID restrictions let up, the whole world is not going to be traveling. We're going to be doing a lot more Zoom, but it is, as Ms. O'Meara said, it is based on historical travel pre-COVID.
Yes.
Yes, Bruce?
I'd like to also affirm Amira for reaching out to us
Yes.
today and answering questions and so forth. It's going to be a real rocky year, let's face it. And the biggest, in the discussion today, and she mentioned it, and then looking at enrollment figures, I mean, these are going to bounce all over the place. And, as you get a new variant, kids are going to stay home. They may be coming back. They may be in other kinds of programs, but it's time to have backup plans, but it's not time to panic. The kids are still out there. I mean, they haven't disappeared. So when things settle down, hopefully, numbers will settle down and kids will come back in the classroom and so forth. I did have a question on the virtual academy. Do we still get full ADA for those students that are participating in the virtual academy?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
are they tied back to a particular school, or is it just wherever they?
No, the virtual academy is within CCCS.
Okay.
Yeah, so you'll see an increase of 82 kiddos in enrollment for that particular site. So some of our decreases are also being offset with students that are moving from our sites to the virtual academy.
To underline what Mr. Mandrick said, it's not just us. All around us, it's volatile. The entire state is wondering, where have kids gone? But they've been tracking kids leaving California and families leaving California, and it's not happening at the rate. So particularly across the state, kindergarten is not, people are not sending their school to kindergarten with masks, and the world thinking it's not required, by the way, right? So I think we're seeing some trends. And as Mr. Mandrick said, it's going to be volatile for us and everyone around us. But I know that our CBO, Miss Rena, worked with our director of data and has looked at where are kids going, and there is no trend. A couple went here, a couple went there, a couple went over there, but there is no big trend that they're all doing X. There's none of that. It's just chaotic, like Mr. Mandrick said, a little bit of chaos in the world right now.
And it's going to continue to be chaos as long as we keep getting variants in here, different
Right.
ones every other month or so. So
Absolutely.
I beg your pardon.
I said, absolutely. I agree with that. It's
Oh,
going to
yeah.
be this way for a long time.
It's going to be
We're
this way
have
for
to
a
just-
long time, and we are going to be up and down, and we're just going to be doing the best we can in terms of making sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do. So we just keep holding on.
And
And
can I
thank you
say,
so much, Amira, for
Yeah.
your presentation. It was very thorough, and thank you. I saw Mark's hand next. Mark.
Sorry, the only thing I was going to say is also I had a good conversation with Elmira today, and thank you so much for answering all my questions. I greatly appreciate it. And I know that you're also having these conversations with the principals as well. We have to have contingency plans, and that's what you're working through. And I'm very comfortable with your approach. Great. Thank you.
Jack, did I see your hand? Yeah.
Yes, I think I speak for the board. Would you please take back to your staff that we truly appreciate the amount of work.
Yes.
Again, it's hard to explain to people that we have 9 different school districts
Yeah,
that we
that's
have to do
amazing.
budgets on, and it's a tremendous amount of work. But thank you.
Just
Thanks.
hang in, Omara, and just keep the faith.
And
We'll get there.
I know that Omira and her team are new to a lot of this, but to make it more complicated, 9 is complicated enough. But if you talk to Dr. McCormick and the 17 plans she's writing, there are also 17 unique different funds that have to be spent and tracked a special way. So it is uniquely more complex this year on top of the usual complexity of 9. So definitely adds to that sense of wanting to appreciate everyone is doing the best they can in a difficult circumstance. But I do want to give a little bit of credit here for the fact that I have been frugal, and you guys have made fun of me for many years about how frugal I am. And right now we have some pretty good reserves because I've been frugal. I'm just saying, just going to put that out.
We'll give that to you. Thank you. So thanks very much. Anything else for this item?
Bruce has his hand up.
Oh, Bruce, Bruce.
Just one little comment to Christina. The state got rid of all categorical funds, so you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, right. I was reading our next item in curriculum instructions, education effectiveness block grant. I was reading and kept thinking, my God, we got to do this 9 times over and over and over again and show where the money is going. Anyway, anything else for Miss O'Mara?
Did we take
Oh, we got to vote.
action?
That's right. Thank you. Thank you. I got excited there. And so now we will entertain a motion to approve the first interim budget and financial report. So yes, Bruce.
I'll move approval.
Move approval. Jack.
I second.
All right. It has been moved and second that we approve the GCC first interim budget and financial report. Roll call. Mr. Anderson, Mark Anderson.
Yes.
Harry Block.
Yes.
Bruce Mandrick.
Yes.
Jack Turner.
Yes.
Lily Campbell. Yes. Unanimously approved the first interim budget and financial report. Thank you again, and our accolades to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And now we move to item 9, curriculum and instruction, educators effectiveness block grant plan. And if you recall, we heard from it the last board meeting, and now it's approving the education effectiveness block grant plan. Dr. McCormick, do you have anything else to add to this item?
I do not. I'm happy to answer any questions that may have come up with your review. And then I'd just like to affirm our Director of Academics, Dr. Gold, and our new coordinator in educational services. They really put their heads together working with our principals to finalize and develop these plans. So I thank them for their work.
Okay, I will entertain a motion for approval. Mr. Turner.
I move approval.
Move approval. Mark.
Second.
Second. It has been moved and second that we approve the educators effectiveness block grant plans for all of the 9 schools. Roll call. Oh, any other discussion? I'm sorry. Any other discussion or comments or questions? Hearing none, seeing none. Roll call. Mark Anderson.
Yes.
Harry Block.
Yes.
Bruce Mandrick.
Yes.
Jack Turner.
Yes.
Lily Campbell, yes, it has been approved. So thank you very much for your hard work. And as I read through them, it was continuous. So thank you and your staff, Dr. McCormick. Please give them our accolades. Thank you. And now we are moving into item 13, board comments. Any board comments before we head into closed session? Do I see any hands for board comments at this point? Seeing none, hearing none, then we will move into closed session. Closed session item, pending litigation pursuant to paragraph 2 or 3 of subdivision D of Government Code 549569-1 case. And so with that, we will come back and report out, but we are now moving Mr. Sample into closed session. Okay, we are back. And I would like to report out on closed session information item only, no action taken. And so with that, we are now announcement of next board meeting. I think it's January the 11th. Am I correct? January the 11th, regular time, 4:45 p.m.
Yes, ma'am.
Anything else, board members? Any other comments, closing comments from board members? Closing comments from board members. Great meeting today. And again, our accolades to our CBO, to our cabinet members. Thank you for all the work, making this a board member that we could move through all of the information. Board members.
I would just say that since we are going to be delaying the board lunch that we had planned, that this is our last meeting before the holidays. So we certainly do want to wish all of our board a safe, happy, joyful holiday time as well.
Thank you.
Happy New Year, everybody.
The same.
Happy New Year.
That's what I was going to say. The same to cabinet. We wish you a great holiday and a Merry Christmas. And please be safe. To all of the staff members, find time to rest, relax, enjoy your families, and please be safe. But above all, get some time to yourselves and your family and rest. We love you. Merry Christmas and a prosperous new year to everyone. Okay. And so with that, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So move.
So move, Mr. Block.
Second.
Second, Mr. Turner. It has been moved in second. All in favor of adjournment, Anderson, Block, Mandrick, Turner, Campbell.